Is the Director General, is Mr. Romano correct when he says that the new reporting requirements for the IAEA for Iran and its nuclear program are less stringent than the reporting requirements were prior to the nuclear deal?
I don't have any information on that one way or the other. And again, I would let Mr. Romano speak to.
He said that.
Okay, well then,
So you're
I'm
okay,
in no position.
You're okay with the IAEA now putting out less information about Iran's nuclear program than it did before the nuclear agreement?
These reports, as you know, they're, as far as I know, it's, this one we're talking about, it's a private report to begin with. So I'm not going to speak to content.
Well, what does that
And-
matter?
I'm not going to speak to content. And you're asking me to grade the
No, I'm
the
not. I'm asking you if
specificity
you're
of the
okay with the
report.
new, he outlined, he spelled out a situation where his organization is now required to report less information about Iran's program than it was before the nuclear deal. And I'm not asking you to give it a grade, I'm just asking you if that's okay with you guys.
What's okay with us, what matters to us, is that Iran complies with the deal. And as long as they're complying with the deal, and the IAEA can verify their compliance, that's what matters.
Yeah,
So
but if they're not reporting the same amount of detail, how can you be so sure that they are compliant?
I think it would depend on the detail we're talking about, Matt, and I don't know what
On
detail.
advanced centrifuge numbers on.
I don't know
on
what
the
detail-
mining and milling of.
I do not know what detail we're talking about. I do not know what detail might have been, might now be not available as opposed to what was. So I'm not going to debate whether the reports are more detailed or less detailed. What I can tell you is that our focus is on making sure Iran meets its commitments. And we've seen no indication that they are not still meeting their commitments.
I understand, but the administration's argument throughout the whole negotiation, and then as the negotiation finished before implementation day, was that the provisions of the agreement meant that there was going to be an unprecedented level of inspection and monitoring and reporting on the program. And it now appears as though, or it doesn't appear, Director General Amano said that the IAEA is now reporting less information than it did before. So I'm just wondering how do you square those two things?
Again, I'll try this again. Regardless of the report, and I'll let Mr. Romano speak to the specificity and the detail in his report. And if he's not happy with the specificity required in his report, there's venues and vehicles for him to take that up. But let's just assume that it's accurate, that the reporting requirements are somehow less specific than they used to be. That doesn't mean that that the verification procedures in place are any less stringent now than they were before. We still have, to use your adjective, unprecedented access to knowledge and information about the nuclear program in Iran. Soup to nuts, mill to centrifuge. That hasn't changed. We still have, as a result of this deal, the ability for 24/7 monitoring.
I'll drop
that
it
hasn't
after
changed.
this, but it's not a question of whether or not he's happy or not with what his new instructions are. It's a question of whether he's right in saying that the instructions are different. He's going to do what he is told to do by the Board of Governors and by the people, the countries that make up the IAEA. And so I don't think it's a question of him being happy or unhappy about it. It's a question of whether or not the reporting requirements have changed and are now, as a result of that change, less less stringent than they were before. That's the
Okay, so you tried it again. Let me try it again. I don't have specific information about whether reporting requirements have changed or not. Our concern, what really matters, is that they continue to comply with all